Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special Sunday edition of D.E.I. Deathwatch, where we chronicle the downfall and the doubling down of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm your host, Scribelight. Welcome to Sunday. It's a beautiful Sunday morning out there. It's actually kind of nice out. Rationale for doing a Deathwatch on a Sunday. Well, let me tell you. First and foremost, Tuesday is going to be a very, very busy day for me. For many reasons. First, there is the fact that it is month end for my work, and so it's going to be busy with invoicing and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to take my brain all over the place. Secondly, at least as of now, I am scheduled to be on a celebratory 100,000 subscriber live stream with Mr. Black for his true crime channel, One Crime TV. The start time for that live stream is kind of in flux right now. It's either 4 p.m. my time or noon my time. I'm getting conflicting messages right now. The thing is still being hammered out. Plus the fact that, at least as of this recording, Mr. Black is fighting off a case of the flu. So Tuesday's really in flux right now, and so rather than do Death Watch or schedule a Death Watch for Tuesday as I usually would, I thought I'd do that today and then keep Tuesday open and free for all of the stuff that's happening there. So that's my rationale for that. And so today I have found a panel discussion. Oh my gosh, a collection of DEI consultants who are going to discuss how to navigate the uncertainty of the DEI market right now. Totally to the organizational leaders to which they would be, contracted to. Not talking amongst themselves about the potential that their careers are in jeopardy, but maybe that'll come up too. I guess we'll find out. But before we get there, who's joining me on this special Sunday broadcast? Snortipupus Cooper. Good morning. Advocatus Diaboli. Good morning. Jill Powers, the River Daughter. Good morning to you. Pope Tyrannus III, the Blessed Lich. Good morning. Jay Blizza. Hello. Robert Pincus. Good morning. Who else is here? Anybody else? Kiro Soldier. Thank you so much, Kiro Soldier, for the how's it going, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow. Wow.
Ooh, there's a Sinatra Says Dogcat Fox. And by the way, Sinatra Says has had his original YouTube channel restored, at least in verification, to YouTube. Still working on that monetization. So if you weren't aware of Sinatra Says or did not know that he had his original channel restored to a functional state, please go look up Sinatra_Says on YouTube. YouTube forced him to leave behind a channel he had built up to over 100,000 subscribers. In fact, I think at the time he was closing in on 200,000 subscribers, and then they yanked it out from under him. So he's trying to rebuild this late in the game, so best of luck to him on that. Ryan R., good morning. Somnamnul Nation, hello. Walter Tomaszewski, good morning. Found, there you are. JPS, good morning. Resolute Germ, hello. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? Twisted Skipster, good morning to you. Good morning to you. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Full Metal Joker, hello. Oh my gosh, so many people here today. Sabian187, good morning. And K. Scholl, good morning to you. All right, guys, so yes, let me save everybody and myself a little time here because I pre-watched the opening of this to find out where we get past all of the introductions and just start with the questions. So, for brevity's sake, here are our speakers. Our moderator is Marwa Hassanian, Associate Vice President, Community Engagement and Belonging at Northern Light Health. Speakers including Carrie Heistad, CEO of Culture Coach International, and top Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Power List 2023. David Sanchez Aguilera, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consultant at Wipfli, And lastly, Deo Moano, CEO, founder, and managing principal at Deo Moano Consultancy. So yes, we have a panel of experts to talk about the, what was it again? What was it? Something, it's the overlay from StreamYard is covering up the first words of my own thing there. I can't say what is it. Anyway, something from DEI consultants for organizational leaders navigating uncertainty and leading inclusion efforts. Anyway, it's one big struggle session, hug box for a declining industry. Let's find out what they have to say. So we're jumping into the first question to the speakers. Save ourselves some time. In this whole talk goes on for about an hour. I'm going to go for an hour and a half in real time unless there is a compelling reason to do otherwise. And with that, let's start out with a few seconds for a sound test. If you guys can hear it, let me know, and then we will proceed.
And I think I'll start with David for this question, and Deo and Kari, feel free to chime in.
Anytime now.
Hello. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'm actually going to change the register slightly to speak about the federal and larger state compliance situations.
Okay. I guess. You guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat. It took a minute. Also, the speaking of sound issues, this talk was given in mono. I had to make a second channel. I did a couple things. Anyway, I can't stand listening to something in mono, and I think that's a band name somewhere. So yeah, the sound is of far better quality thanks to me than was the original broadcast. So there you go.
So as I was introduced, I am a DE&I consultant. I really live in the organizational consulting role.
Sounds like a very lonely place to be.
Which means assisting many organizations to transform their HR practices and stay in compliance with state and local laws.
Really? Stay in compliance with state and local laws using a DEI philosophy? I really wonder, how does that square with the Civil Rights Act, Title VI and Title VII specifically?
So I think it's important when we start to really understand the context legally in which we are operating.
Yes, please. Oh boy. Yeah, tell me, what is the legal context in which you are operating? And tell me how DEI has fought back against legality for the last decade.
I will start off by just notating that I am not a lawyer by training.
Well, okay, neither am I, but here's the thing. If I was comporting myself to be a DEI consultant, I would at least want to be a functional expert in the legal boundaries in which I worked, right? So tell me that you at least have that on your credentials.
I only play one on TV, so you'll have to kind of give me some grace in my interpretation of some of these executive orders that have come out.
No. The executive orders are effectively unnecessary and irrelevant. How are you in compliance with existing Title VII laws and or Title VI, depending on who you're working with? Tell me. Or the organizations you work with. You as the consultant, you're not doing the hiring. You're not the one actually taking the action. You're the one advising. So how do you advise companies to stay within the boundaries of existing law? Not executive orders. Those matter too, but in my mind, they are less important than what has been on the books for half a century now. Kiro Soldier, thank you so much. He talks so placidly, it shows his high soy intake. Possibly so. Also, Kiro Soldier currently is the #1 fan in the chat. He's got a little crown. Yeah, what are the leaderboards right now? Leaderboards. Kiro Soldier #1. The Dead Man is in #2 place. K. Sholin #3. Oh my gosh. Now you two can compete To fight for my love, or YouTube's love, one of the two. Anyway.
In the new presidency.
The new presidency,
But I do want to focus on those executive orders because they really have set the tone and the carpet or the parameters for how we operate as DE&I and HR professionals.
No, they just effectively reiterated existing civil rights laws. Stop leaning on the executive orders. This was all coming down long before Donald Trump became the president again. And the laws on the books have been there since 1964. So come on. Whoa.
Those would be Executive Order 14173 and 14151. So what those do...
what those reiterate?
The first one, 14173, essentially revokes the former Executive Order 11246 and what it does is penalizes illegal DE&I via the False Claims Act.
Penalizes legal DE&I. What?
What is incredibly contradictory about this is that illegal DE&I has always been illegal, right?
Illegal DE&I has always been illegal. Well, the fact that DE&I is not a legal term in the first place.
Right? And so the question has become, what is the interpretation of illegal under this federal government?
No, the question is not. The question is answered. Go to Title VII. Does the company you work for or are you promoting racial, gender, quotas, etc. on a timeline? Are you discriminating on the basis of race or gender or any other element listed in Title VII when you're doing your hiring practices, your HR, your recruitment, and so on? Anything that could be interpreted as being discriminatory unfairly? The executive orders are irrelevant.
And that's something that I want to explore more today, since the understanding that is super key in how you set up your diversity programs.
Even though you're not a lawyer, okay.
To ensure, your own safety, depending on if you were to be audited, and whatnot.
It would be great. It would be great if you were audited. Every organization with a DEI claim should be audited for compliance.
I will say that this kind of revoking of the illegal DE&I mandates.
Okay, you're going to have to describe to us what you mean by legal DE&I mandates. If you're talking about the former executive orders that just affirmed, affirmative action, which has now been revoked by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's ruling made that executive order, I think it was under LBJ, defunct, as a matter of course. So what are you talking about when you're talking about, quote unquote, legal DE&I?
Right now is focused on federal contractors. So if you're not a federal contractor, the ramifications for you are somewhat more indirect here.
Title VII.
But of course, the kind of precedent that is set with the contractors is being noticed by private companies.
The precedent set with federal contractors is Title VI. It has been there since 1964. If you accept federal financial assistance and having a federal contract counts, then you are bound by Title VI. If you accept that money, you are accepting the restrictions under Title VI.
And we are taking we're tracking the movements that the contractors are doing in their spaces and translating and understanding what that means for private companies. I would say that if you are a federal contractor, you have much more scrutiny right now. And if you're a private company, you do have a lot more latitude.
Well, that's only because you have more scrutiny as a federal contractor, because Title VI is there essentially forever. As long as you are accepting the money, Title VI applies to you. In Title VII cases, one of the difficulties is being able to prove that someone has had their civil rights violated and having a complaint filed within a brief period of time before you effectively hit an internal sort of statute of limitations. And that has to be done on a case-by-case basis or in a class action basis, which is also very difficult to put together within a timely fashion under the law. So yes, federal contractors are always, or should be always, under the scrutiny of the federal government under Title VI. Title VII has a lot more moving parts and a lot more thresholds you have to meet. That's the differential. It's a little safer if you're a private company not accepting federal money. Yeah, safer to potentially violate federal law.
How you want to enact your policies, but it really is setting the tone in terms of how some of these issues might be adjudicated if they were ever to go to court or ever to go in front of the EEOC.
Which we can only hope that they do.
So the second one is executive order. If we could turn the next slide.
Who's running this panel discussion? Is it the lady who's the moderator or this guy?
Perfect. The second one is, okay, great, I don't need this. Executive Order 14151, which is ending radical and wasteful government DE&I programs. So they don't make any hesitation about their value judgments about DE&I programs.
I'm glad that they don't, because you guys have had a decade to prove that they're worthwhile, despite the fact that almost all of them in some way, shape, or form tempt fate or outright violate existing laws. So
in that title, what it does is dismantle DE&I offices, equity action plans, and DE&I content in federal agencies.
Yes. Do you know why?
So if we can move on to the next slide.
Oh, you got nothing to say to that one? So wait. Your entire career vocation is accused of being wasteful and unnecessary by this executive order. No counterpoint? Nothing? Okay.
This also leaves us in a contradictory zone in terms of the OFCCP, which is
what?
Is the kind of office that oversees the contractors, the federal contractors. They have historically enforced Executive Order 11246.
And what does 11246 say?
Which is the affirmative action planning.
Yes, and what did the Supreme Court just do, in 2023, I should say, regarding affirmative action? Huh?
So what has now happened is that the OFCCP has been stripped of some of its powers in terms of how it mandates or sets affirmative action programs.
And why? Why is that?
If not outright being told to stop, they've been asked to pause the ones that they currently do have.
And under what justification?
And I will put an asterisk there and say that there are certain kind of protected classes like disabilities and veteran status that.
Yes, disability and veteran status. Yes, these are exceptions. Yeah, you're correct. And so it's not across the board if you happen to. So what is your complaint?
Are considered much safer options. So you could still, as a contractor, create an affirmative action plan that targets disability and veteran status. But those, I would say, would be the two that are considered safe. Anything regarding kind of race, gender, nationality,
religion, ethnicity, country of origin,
really have a microscope under them.
Right. Yeah, because disability is not something that is a surface level element of somebody's whatever. Can they do the job? Right. Veteran status. Veterans have a special place in our society for the sacrifices they've made and the difficulties they may have as a result of their service. These are all meritorious-based instances. It's not surface-level stuff. It's not stuff that affects your ability to do a job, or not do a job, as the case may be.
Perfect. So if we can go to the next slide.
Okay, you really are running this thing. Okay.
So as I am working with clients and as I am seeing what they are doing in terms of kind of making sure that their diversity programs, either that do exist, are compliant.
Okay, you're going to have to really get down to the nitty-gritty with us. What do you mean when you say compliant?
Or if they are interested in creating diversity programs, what I have counseled them to do, and this is actually something that is not necessarily new. We've seen in the case laws.
But you're not a lawyer. Just want to keep reiterating. You made sure to say you're not a lawyer, but you're the one advising companies how to stay in compliance with the law. Okay.
In the last 10 years, that there has been certain courts and decisions where it has been determined that things like reverse racism are indeed, in terms of the law, considered to be accurate kind of claims to make.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's only racism. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. If you're talking about the Ames decision regarding the threshold that someone has to meet in order to make a case for discrimination, and that there was a undue burden placed upon white people versus non-white people in such cases. Is that what you're talking about? Because we went over the Ames decision. Now, see, I'm not a lawyer, but I can at least partially quote the case that I think you're referring to. Man, you see, I missed my calling. I should have been a DEI consultant, man. I could have cleaned up.
So there are instances that we've seen all over the country where you've seen people from a dominant group saying that they have been treated unfairly because
it's the Ames decision, isn't it?
Because of the environment that's been created internally.
And
so we have to be aware that is
the dominant group. You're talking about an individual being discriminated against on the basis of her race and or her, in the case of Ames, orientation. And it's not about dominant group. It's about individual action, individual civil rights.
A manner in which the courts are adjudicating those kind of cases they are hearing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just go for the majority group in terms of race. It also goes for the majority group in terms of sexuality.
Yeah. Okay. Just can you at least cite? Just say Ames. Just tell me you're at least aware of the case that is most relevant to this.
So we've seen cases where people that are heterosexual have sued and said that they have been discriminated against.
No, we had one case. We had one signature case. Ames.
For not being of a different sexuality. So let's take a look at this. So all of this.
So is that wrong? Are you saying that it's incorrect? That just because you happen to fall within the quote-unquote dominant demographic that you shouldn't be afforded the same consideration for the protection of your rights as someone who's from a not dominant demographic? What are you laughing about here? What's your objection?
This is kind of convoluted, right? So we have...
It's not that convoluted. 14th Amendment. The laws shall be adjudicated equally in the states.
The Office of FCCP that is still it's being asked to kind of sunset its affirmative action programs.
Yeah, why? Why? Because of a combination of the Supreme Court's decision in 2023 against affirmative action in schools, specifically, but just applied to Title VI adherence anyway, which is any organization that accepts federal funding. I mean, that decision was about admissions policies in colleges and universities, but it speaks to what you can and cannot get away with in organizations that accept federal funding, because it was a Title VI and a 14th Amendment decision. Okay? And then you had the Ames case. And these things in conjunction over time whittle away at previous things established in executive orders. If an executive order from 1965 said affirmative action is a thing, and then lo and behold, years later, legal precedent and Supreme Court rulings said, affirmative action is actually unconstitutional, well then that executive order that sort of made pseudo-law becomes defunct. I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer, but you do this professionally. Why is this happening?
And then we still have the protection under the law of the Title VII. So how do we make sense of all of this?
How do we make sense of all this where you're not allowed to discriminate on the basis of someone's race or gender or national origin or ethnicity or religion? Yeah, and the court has now twice affirmed that you can't do that by striking down affirmative action and the ruling in the Ames case. And it all stays within the boundaries of the existing civil rights law, Title VI and Title VII. So what is your problem?
That they're coming for our diversity programs, but the executive orders themselves are not law.
Yeah, you're right. The executive orders are not law, and yet you're decrying the fact that some executive orders have been canceled or overwritten. Which is it?
And it's sort of that quagmire and that contradiction that we as HR and diversity professionals are trying to navigate.
What contradiction? Okay, let me read the card that he's got up. For those of you listening at home or in the car or something, there is a card up because our guest speaker is actually now the moderator of this entire thing. He's making a lecture and not being part of a panel. Navigating backlash. Point number 1, focus on structural and procedural obstacles, not identity-based preference. Well, if you're not focusing on identity-based preference, then that kind of undercuts the entire DEI structure, doesn't it? Number 2, legally supported under Title VII and DOJ guidance. What's legally supported? DEI? Not as it's been practiced. Examples: universal but equity-aware hiring redesign, bias interruption training for all, transparent promotion pathways, metrics focused on process improvement, not quota. Yeah, aspirational goals, not illegal quotas, guys. Okay, I'm going to back up just a smidge because I had to pause a whole bunch there. I still have to pause for YouTube's sake. But I just want to try to hear some of that again where what is he describing as far as like quagmire?
Sued and said that they have been discriminated against for not being of a different sexuality.
Not being straight. They were discriminated against for not being... Sorry, they were discriminated against for being straight and not being gay. Because they were replaced consistently by people who were gay over and over again. It was just an amazing coincidence. Thank you, Killer Turnus. Acrobles. Dogcat Fox. Acrobles? Is that like... Is that like the Acropolis on the moon? I'm going to say that's the name of the Acropolis on the moon. Yes, we all go to the Acropolis. That's Scribble's Acropolis. Also Dogcat Fox. Well, I can't turn away a shout out to Dogcat Fox.
Wowee, wow.
Oh, there's an irate Alex Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Killer Turnus. Acropolis. The Acropolis. Also, I've been so entwined in the talk here. Brian Morissette, good morning. Roasted Opinions, hello. Anybody else I missed along the way? Probably. Let me check. Morgan King, good morning. Anybody else? Scrolling. I don't see anybody. If I missed you, make yourself known, and I will do my best to say hello. Let's see. Back to it.
So let's take a look at this. So all of this is kind of convoluted, right? So we have the Office of FCCP that is still kind of... It's being asked to kind of sunset its affirmative action programs.
Again, why? What? Okay, even if you don't agree with it, what is the rationale for doing so?
And then we still have the protection under the law of the Title VII.
What protection under Title VII do you enjoy?
So how do we make sense of all of this? That they're coming for our diversity programs, but the executive orders themselves are not law.
I really want him to explain, because I honestly don't know. What protections does he think he enjoys as a DEI consultant under Title VII? What Title VII is protecting employees. What is it doing for you?
And it's sort of that quagmire and that contradiction that we as HR and diversity professionals are trying to navigate. So some of the
You're trying to save your careers is what you're doing.
Guidance that has been set by the Society of Human Resources, so SHRM.
The Society of Human Resources sounds like a real official organization.
Are, regardless of your opinion of them, they have kind of come out with a structure that I think is safe in terms of how one can think about their diversity programs.
I've never heard of the Society of Human Resources, SHRM. Regardless of what you think of them. Well, that implies something. Okay, what is their recommended structure?
Which is to keep it universal, but aware of power injustices.
Yeah. It's for everyone, but remember, there are some that deserve it more than others. Yeah. What was it like? 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. All animals are equal, except some are more equal than others.
Bias interruption training is still kind of a safe option.
In what way? Describe a bias interruption training session.
Being transparent in your promotional ladders, still a safe option. So
when was it ever not a safe option to be transparent in your promotional pathways? What does that mean anyway? How is that beneficial to DEI in the first place? How is that unique to DEI?
Metrics focus on retention and process improvement, conversion rates to management.
Please use the word aspirational somewhere in here.
Tracking those are still considered safe. So I think what we're seeing is really a shift toward the structural and understanding where are the kind of negative employment and adverse experiences being taken, and then kind of addressing those in a more universalist way versus a very kind of targeted way that we've seen in the past.
Okay. All right. So unfortunately, you're having to move away, at least rhetorically, from being from servicing specific racial demographics and one gender demographic, and instead have to talk, or your rhetoric has to sound more generalized. Yeah. So examples: universal but equity aware hiring redesign. I love the double talk. It just shows how much they are struggling to still sate their need to be discriminatory and racist and sexist, but to come across like they're being fair. This wishy-washy language is the biggest red flag you need.
I think I've spoken for quite a while now, so
You have. You took over the whole talk.
I will pass it back.
Oh, how kind of you. After 10 minutes of straight lecturing, when you were just asked a question. Good golly. Yeah, hand the mic to somebody else, would you?
Thank you, David. And since we kind of did these backwards.
Yeah, because David decided to take over the whole thing and not let the conversation, grow organically.
I'll jump to Kari and, just to kind of get your thoughts on, the shifts that you are observing when it comes to the backlash from a national perspective.
Okay, and just to remind, after we had a treatise by our first quote-unquote speaker, and for those of you joining late, this is Kari Heistad. CEO at Culture Coach International, and top Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Power List 2023. So she was the top of the pops, guys, in 2023 for DEI. So she's a real expert. Here we go.
So we have clients that range in size from 25 employees to tens of thousands of employees. So what we're seeing is a whole variety of things. I think we've got some slides that will come up for a couple talking points here for folks.
Oh, I love slides. Bring me more slides.
When we look at this, if we can go to the next slide, I think there's a fine line that I find that executives are having to walk, which is
the law.
How do we support the lived experience of our employees?
I don't know. How do you support the lived experience of your select employees based on their demographic fit?
Which can be fraught with challenges and fear and all kinds of other things going on. At the same time, navigating the balance of the business and what needs to get done.
Yeah. How does DEI measurably improve business outcomes? And also there's that whole legal thing.
And so depending on the organization, they're walking that line and trying to find that balance point between how do we support employees and still get the work done that we need to get done.
How do we turn our employees into a bunch of victimhood grifters or play up their personal lives like we have anything to do with them? Destroying professional distance and wasting valuable company time on seeing to everyone's feelings or our perception of their feelings based on what they look like?
Some of them are doubling down. I think we hear a lot about the companies that are walking away from DEI, but this is a stat up here. 65% of companies will maintain or increase their DEI budgets.
Oh, great. 65. Okay, so on the screen, guys, there's a card. It says, shifts in American business DEI in 2025. Quiet persistence. Oh, the stun, oh, the brave. 65% of U.S. companies will maintain or increase DEI budgets while adapting messaging and implementation approaches. So we're going to build for you a Potemkin village of compliance with federal law while we're still being functionally and structurally unfair and discriminatory. And throwing more money on the pyre at the same time, just to show off how virtuous we are. There was additional 22% plan to increase funding. Okay, so 65% will maintain or increase, but 22% plan to increase funding. Okay.
This was done this year. So it's not everybody walking away. So some people are just doubling down, and some of the big ones like Target and stuff are getting the news.
Oh, yeah, they're getting the news all right. They'll be better off for it in the long run, I bet you.
Other folks are saying, okay, I'm a federal contractor, or there's other things that's limiting the terms that I'm using.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to shift and I'm going to start calling employee engagement.
Yeah, employee engagement or global impact or inclusive direction or something.
I'm going to call it how do we understand the employee life cycle. I joke with people all the time. People are going to people.
And why should it be? You and I should get along. So anyway.
No matter what.
Yeah.
So we still need to teach people how to be able to engage and how to work through some of that. So they're seeing some language changes.
Language change. Okay, moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. You're just confessing that it's a paint job. That you're not actually changing anything. And you're encouraging your clients to just be subversive about it. Subversive structural discrimination. Again, and I will say it until I see some action taken on it. DEI needs an IRS. DEI needs to be audited. If you are a company that has promoted DEI in the past, or are saying in no uncertain terms that you're just changing words on your website or something, then you need to have an audit. The federal government needs to send somebody in to analyze all of your existing recruitment, hiring, promotional practices for compliance with federal law, regardless of what you've named it or how you've changed the font, because this is exactly the problem here. It's just going to be pushed under the surface. It's just going to have a new name. We saw the same thing happen. California, as a state, was the sort of the petri dish for this, because they eliminated statewide affirmative action back in 1996. Strange to say, but yes, liberal California legally outlawed affirmative action in colleges and universities back in 1996. But ever since then, the colleges and universities in California have done absolutely everything they possibly could to still try to meet those goals without necessarily calling it affirmative action, right? Finding every loophole, every piece of vocabulary alchemy they could come up with to try to get around the law. And that's exactly what's happening here, and exactly what I knew would happen as soon as affirmative action got outlawed by the courts and DEI started to go on the downslope. They're doing everything possible to still be discriminatory, to still violate the law, but just call it something different and try to get away with it. You cannot trust these companies with these DEI programs. They need oversight.
They're adapting, they're renaming, and then they're branding it internally a little bit differently than what they used to, keeping the essence of what they've been trying to do and recognizing that we still need to do the work, even if we have to call it something else, because we have to.
Need I say more?
The organizations we're working with that are no longer calling it diversity, they're now calling it inclusion or belonging or something. They're doing it with dragging their feet, but they also recognize if they're a federal contractor, they still need to get the contract. So
yeah. We still need to come across like we're complying with federal law, that we're still complying with Title VI, even though we're not. We have to look like we are. Listen to what she is saying. She is by extension saying that federal contractors need to carefully lie to the federal government in order to maintain the federal money. Is this what she's encouraging her clients to do? It is incredible what someone will admit to when they're among friends.
There are some people who are following this tension at the same time recognizing the employee's lived experience. Next slide.
Whoa, next slide. Whoa. You didn't even go over the rest of the stuff on the slide. Okay, so quiet persistence. We've got 65% of companies will maintain or increase, 22% plan to increase funding. 5% say they've eliminated their DEI programs. The operative word in that statement is say. And 8% are reducing their budget, but not getting rid of. Okay, and that's from a survey of 1,000 companies at resume.org. Oh, it sounds very accurate. Leadership evolution. Focus on empathy, resilience, emotional intelligence. Essential for effectively leading diverse teams. So what happens if you have a non-diverse team? What do you have to do then? Companies are adapting, renaming programs, integrating topics in new ways, focusing on teamwork, soft skills, and then internal rebranding, a shift away from diversity and equity to inclusion, employee engagement, belonging, employee experience. I always like global impact, or something with the word impact in it. That always sounded good.
Things that we're seeing that we can then do is to use something called microlearning. So
microlearning. Uh-oh. Does that go along with microaggressions?
Just curious, who in the room currently knows what microlearning is or uses it?
I'm not looking at the slide. Microlearning. I'll admit, I don't know that I've heard that term before, and if I have, I don't recall the definition, or at least the current. Okay, what is microlearning? Is it learning little things? Is it death by 1,000 cuts? Is it slowly turning the temperature up in the water so the frog doesn't jump out immediately?
Fantastic. We've got some folks. Okay. Microlearning. Bite-sized learning. For an individual, it's 5 minutes or less. In teams, it's 15 minutes or less.
Sounds like a lazy lesson plan for DEI consultants.
If we start focusing on these micro-learning elements, which we've done an awful lot with clients, to say, how do we do quick learning? It's A, responsive to your employees right now.
It's Quibi. You guys remember Quibi, right? Quick bites or quick bits or whatever it was. Yeah, your 2-minute long entries into streaming series. They spent $1 billion on that and it completely failed. But now all of a sudden, such things are becoming popular overseas. 2-minute long dramas, little episodes of story that are just a couple minutes long or something, micro dramas or something. Yeah, 5-minute learning sessions. Yeah, just do like 7 of those a day. Keep pounding into your head this stuff.
B, you can turn it around very quickly. So something happens, you need to get a learning out. You can push it out to folks really quickly. And C, you're not doing an entire campaign and pulling people off the job. So what this is allowing us to do in this environment, which
what use is it then? Okay, so your employees' attention spans are not very long. B, you acknowledge that doing these trainings takes time away from the actual business of the business and are a waste of time. And so why are they there? I think they're there just to say that you're doing something, both as a checkbox for your DEI overlords and as a consultant to make it seem like you're doing your job.
Which is changing by the hour, the minute, the second. It allows people in organizations to support people, personalize the content which your employees need, address misinformation if there's information out there.
Misinformation. I'd love some examples.
Taking this idea of micro-learning and micro-training to another level allows you to kind of build that in. And the last slide we've got here.
Well, again, if you're going to put a slide up. Okay, micro-learning training, a tool working within pushback. Oh, so it's a resistance. Okay, bite-sized learning. Short, focused modules build awareness and skills incrementally, such as, second point, anywhere, anytime learning. You can never get away from it. Okay, third, resiliency, difficult conversations. Oh, do you mean courageous conversations, Glenn Singleton? Conflict resolution, empathy, building belonging, innovation, cross-cultural understanding. Secondly, personalized approach. On-demand training fits into busy schedules and allows learners to progress at their own pace, reinforcing inclusive behaviors. What if I choose not to participate? What if I don't care? What if I just want to do my job and go home? Misinformation defense delivers clear, actionable content, okay, without overwhelming staff or leadership. I would love to know what that means. And secondly, deployed easily to address concerns that come up. And then something that's covered up by the screen within a screen. Something development, something, and soft skills for leading diverse teams. Okay.
Here, which is around what does this really mean for you? I think it's helping your organizations to understand, and this is with the clients we're working with, innovation, diversity, whatever term you want to call it right now, is a business driver.
How? How is it a business driver? Whatever you want to call it right now. And after 10 years or more of this, why do you guys keep feeling inclined to have to make this argument? If you have proof that it works, give me the success story. Point to the company that in no uncertain terms has measurably benefited from DEI, that their bottom line has gone up because of DEI. Please, you've worked with companies for years, right? You were the top DEI person of 2023. You can name a success story from your clientele, right? An observable success story.
And what we need to do is to help leaders, as always, to understand why they should care.
It's been a decade or more now. Okay, I've been covering this stuff since 2016. Why does the argument still need to be made a decade after the fact? If the benefits of DEI to a business are just self-evident, Why are you guys still having to make the case?
Now, in Maine, as we've been hearing all your speakers talk about, you don't have enough people.
What?
So you need more people to come, and people are not going to go work for organizations that have bad reputations.
Is not having a DEI program part and parcel with a bad reputation now?
Period. You come to Maine, you've got a choice of jobs. There aren't enough jobs. There aren't enough people for the jobs. So if you don't want to be fighting for talent, why don't you attract the talent by just being a really good employer?
Well, in my world, an employer that promotes DEI is not being a good employer. They are telling me, at least by implication, that they value people on the basis of something other than merit first. So, do you want to get more specific about this? Do you want to give us an active example? Again, a success story from your, varied career in DEI?
Right. Teachers, leaders, about empathy, about respect, about driving dignity. All of those pieces are basic human things about just being a good employer.
Right. Yeah. You need a DEI consultant to teach someone about empathy and respect. Because obviously in the absence of DEI, there is no empathy and there is no respect. Because any company without DEI is obviously an inhuman sausage factory.
Small actions matter. I know in the past we've been able to do big programs and big stuff and all that other type of stuff.
Yeah, when the money was flowing unbidden.
We've heard earlier about partnerships. How do we show up? Everybody can show up and make small differences.
Like what? Like what?
How do we interact with you and the 1,000 of other small interactions we interact with people every day?
I don't know. You're the expert. You tell me.
Is important. Those ripple effects go out. Live
like
what you want other people to do.
Live what you want other people to do. You mean do unto others as you would have them do unto. Wow, what innovative advice! Holy cow, guys! Can you imagine that?
That makes it sustainable.
Oh,
and I think Maine has an opportunity to really be on the front leadership on the national level in terms of doing some of this because of the power of what you're doing.
If you say so. I guess I'm glad I don't live in Maine if this is the running theory.
People have asked a couple times about how to get started with DEI.
Sure.
If you do the QR code on there, it goes to our website. The handouts with these notes are in there.
Oh boy, I can't wait to go to culturecoach.biz.
In addition to, I've put some other kind of little handbook pieces on how to get started. So hopefully that allows you to kind of understand and pull through some of that.
Yeah. How do I begin a racial audit at my company?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Perfectly said.
Sure. Okay, so everybody comes with their own PowerPoint presentation. All right, so the first guy took 10 minutes. This lady took about 5.
Now shifting to DEO, when it comes to working with partners at the state of Maine or with organizations across the region, what major shifts are you observing in how businesses and organizations and governmental entities as a whole are approaching workforce development and improving inclusions to and within their organizations?
Good gravy. Could you make that question any longer?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Deo Moano. I think the thing that's been unique for my team and I, we're based in New Hampshire, but we work with organizations all over, in Maine, in New England, sometimes all over the country. I think what's happened in the last 5 years.
The last 5 years. Okay, so. Oh, please do bring up George Floyd. Going back 5 years, it's 2020.
There's always a shift. Obviously, there's societal shifts that
George Floyd
that drives different thing, and I would say in my work, DEI almost became too big in terms of the categorization of how organizations were able to package what was DEI.
Okay, I got sirens going off in the background because they're coming to take me away. Haha, they're coming to take me away. I don't know if you guys can hear those, but they're distracting me. Okay, DEI became too big Well, I mean, I agree with that. Where are you going with it?
And what is DEI?
Well, yes, it became a catch-all term, and a lot of things that were either completely benign or whatever got put under the umbrella of DEI, so it kind of, clouded the waters a bit. That's why you need someone to audit these places that say they have a DEI program or something else, because they have tried to hide the rot within things or among things that are otherwise uncontroversial, but still call it all DEI. So if that's what he means, then I agree.
And so certain things that are just like employee experience that's holistic fell under DEI.
I mean, in spirit, I agree with him.
So that's on internal employment standpoint, but also in the grant making space, my team and I, we've had opportunities to work with a lot of grant makers that give out money. Things that's just supposed to be like communities of needs.
Yeah, well, how do you classify those communities of need? Is it race-based by any chance? Is it discriminatory on the basis of things that are questionable under existing law? And he's also speaking to something I've talked about before, is that using the actual words diversity, equity, and inclusion in either new legislation or new statutes trying to fight back against this stuff is actually counterproductive, because as our previous two speakers have effectively said, all you need do then to try to hide the ball on it is to change the words you use. Right? Still have the same mechanisms taking place behind the scenes, but just shift the branding a little bit and nobody will know what we're doing. That's not what needs to be done. Like I said, audit for compliance.
The intention behind making sure that the distribution of resources from those grant makers are reaching those community became DEI. So
yeah, you know why? Because the companies themselves branded those things as part of their diversity initiatives. They did that themselves. And the focus that they made for that money on saying this money is going to go to people on the basis of their race, or this money is going to go to people on the basis of their orientation or their gender. Yeah. Merit, if it ever was a consideration, was at best a secondary consideration. So, yeah, and it wasn't an outside force that classified these kind of grant programs as DEI. It was the grantors themselves that did it.
And I would say on top of that, what we saw with the last administration, which I would argue was actually really great.
I'm sure you thought the Biden administration was great.
There was a lot of assessment that were done where there were areas where they identify where there were actual gaps in how procurement opportunities either segregated or did not include certain groups.
You're talking about disparities in the makeup of federal contractors or suppliers simply on the basis of the race and or gender and or orientation of the owners of said businesses. Yeah, if you did a survey of all the suppliers and contractors and just looked at the racial or demographic makeup of the ownership and then said, aha, see, most of the contractors are white. And what was that in proportion to the population makeup of the country? Completely within the boundaries. Oh, but there's a disparity, therefore we're obviously being racist.
So there were rules and regulation at a federal level that actually required certain approach that ensure that different communities or different businesses or different contractors.
No. Not communities or businesses or contractors. There was money set aside specifically for businesses that had ownership that fell within certain demographics. That's it. So $2 billion of this particular department has to be spent on contractors whose ownership looks a certain way. Everyone else is excluded from that money unless you fall into the right racial or gender demographic. Does that sound fair? Does that sound equitable?
Also represented different groups. And
excluded others by the very nature of what they are, didn't it?
And those things were super, super important.
Oh yeah, they were super, super important because it was guaranteed money.
Because for the first time, organizations, maybe perhaps that would have never received resources, had a chance to receive resources.
Yeah, not on the basis of their merit or the quality of their services, but on the melanin count of their ownership. Think about what you are promoting for a second, would you?
So, and I think in the last 4 to 5 years, organizations and practitioners that are in this space kind of rode the wave and got super comfortable. On top of that, we also add the pandemic where ridiculous amount of resources was allocated.
On top of the racial reckoning and the lack of enforcement of existing laws and the federal cheerleading going on with these programs, yes, as I've said, if I was a man of lesser ethics, if I had hung out a shingle as a DEI consultant in 2018 and just plied my rhetorical services out for a 4-year span, I would have been golden for the rest of my life. Just the money I could have made in starting a DEI consultancy company and just spent 4 years doing it. From 2018 through 2022, holy cats, the paychecks I could have had. Ride that wave. And then it all started drying up in 2023, late 2022, early 2023. And it could be easily argued that if I'd started as soon as I started my YouTube channel, get a couple extra years out of it. Sure, it was big deal for nobody was touching it from 2015 up through about 2022, 2023. Yeah, there was a great time there. Billions of dollars invested or promised, millions of dollars in contracts from the federal government here, there, and otherwise. Do DEI trainings and get a big paycheck for doing nothing and contributing nothing. Oh, man. It would have been a golden age. And now all of that is coming mostly to an end, isn't it?
Like never before, in the history of this country or any other country in terms of stimulus money. Yeah. And I know some of you, your organizations are still, you might be at the end of those resources.
Yeah, that free money that by all rights most businesses should have to pay back, but they just get written off. Or those individuals in Congress or their family members who got PPP loans that were just simply forgiven. So free money,
we're able to benefit from them.
Yes.
And I think what really happened, I think it's the packaging. So then that means there were actual dollars and resources that were tied to DEI, and it opened up a lot of opportunity, and it also forced a lot of organization to shift their narrative in order to increase their likelihood of receiving funds because they had DEI components associated to their grant or the requirement.
It's almost like a lot of the DEI stuff was performative for the sake of financial benefit. At the same time, though, they actually had to implement these programs in some meaningful way, and as a consequence, step on the civil rights of countless people. It's one way to look at it. The dead man, they call YouTubers grifters. They're the grifters. Yeah, he just explained it very, very well, right? There is a financial incentive to say that you were a DEI proponent as a company, right? You get some kind of benefit, you get some kind of supplement, you get free advertising, you get all the slaps on the backs from your compatriots and everything. Oh my gosh. And certainly from the big financial institutions like Vanguard and BlackRock, if you were a DEI compliant company, you were in. If you weren't, there was a lesser chance that you'd be given funding or be able to have an investment, right? I mean, it was, on the one hand, it was completely mercenary, but then they had to follow through in some way that actually made it seem like they were doing something along the lines of DEI, which was discrimination, identity politics, denying people the possibility of opportunities and promotions because they looked the wrong way. Yeah, it was all insidious. It was all a big scam. It still is a big scam. And whether our speaker realizes it or not, he's describing perfectly why it's so insidious. Because there was a financial incentive. As long as you got that DEI seal of approval, the doors were open for extra funds, extra advertising, extra supplements, extra investment. But if you didn't, well, then you were on the outs.
That they needed to include at a federal level. So coming out of it, and I don't think we ever thought that shift was going to happen so drastic and so aggressive.
Yeah, you guys thought the gravy train was going to go on forever. Yeah, just like everybody else that was pumping up a lot of their services and things during the pandemic, thinking that pattern would, hold over time.
The way that it's happened in the last 8 months. And because dollars are attached and some organizations are tied to those dollars.
Yeah.
And they were still independently in their own journey of figuring out what it actually meant to run successful DEI initiative within their organization.
The fact that they still have to define what success means for DEI says a lot. Yeah, it is amazing, the turnaround. And when did the turnaround start? End of 2022, and certainly after the spring of 2023. Long before Donald Trump became president again. The affirmative action decision and the precursor of the oral arguments ahead of it. I'm telling you, the writing was on the wall 3 years ago. Donald Trump's executive orders supercharged it, but it was something that was already happening.
That actually focused on marginalized groups. They were still in that journey, but they might have ripped the benefit of maybe submitting a good grant or positioning themselves or getting the right PR or the right marketing stuff. But the work itself was still evolving. And all of a sudden the shift happens. And when the shift happens, if it was business priority or revenue impacted, many of the organization reverted back because they wanted to ensure that their business priority still worked and flowed.
No, they reverted back because all of a sudden they were reminded that there are laws in this country that they were tempting fate with the entire time. Also, the evolution of DE, it's been over a decade. Why isn't it down to a science at this point? I keep being told how, obviously beneficial it is to a business, and it's a must-have. It's not a nice to have, it's a business imperative. If you're still trying to find out how to make it work this far into it, then you don't know what you're doing. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, what are we looking at here? Okay, I haven't been looking at the clock. It's actually a lot earlier than I thought it was. Okay.
So I'm going to give some examples here.
What? You're going to give what? Oh my God. Oh, okay. Well, hell, I'm here for it. Finally. Third time's the charm on speakers. Give me an example.
Here. I've had the pleasure to work with campus service operation of colleges.
A named client. I love this guy. Okay.
And one organization that we worked with for the last 5 years, they operate out of Aurora area, and they created a huge initiative, embedded their DI practices in hiring in every aspect. Like this is the dream partner.
A dream partner. Okay, so someone who is all in. Someone who's a true believer. Okay.
They did a convening in January.
I'm assuming January 2025.
With a bunch of Ivy League campus services operations from all over the country.
Okay.
Prior to the change of power.
Okay, so sometime early. Okay,
And in the conversations, these Ivy League schools were from all over the country, and they were talking about what they're scared of based on what they experienced in the previous administration, where they felt targeted, their institutions felt targeted.
Their institutions felt targeted in the previous administration? Are you talking about like the affirmative action decision? That wasn't the Biden administration, so to speak. It was the Supreme Court. What are you talking about targeted by the previous administration?
And we created a strategy of how they can navigate it. And once the changes happened, the worst of the worst that they feared actually occurred, like at the highest level in terms of their institutions getting research money frozen, and a lot of the research money that comes in at university, it doesn't just go to research, because there's line items that those resources get trickled down to operation as well.
Money's fungible. Yeah.
So a lot of them found themselves having to either cut positions and reallocating resources.
So all that federal money they've been receiving for so long at institutions that promoted race-based or race-preferenced programs, either in admissions or anything else. Here's the thing. Title VI says any program or activity. It doesn't just say, in your hiring practices or in your admissions or, in the coffee room or something. No, any program or activity that receives federal financial assistance cannot discriminate on the basis of race. In any way, shape, or form. And most of these colleges have had race-based programs of one form or another, either in grants, scholarships, admissions policies for years and years and years. And all of a sudden now, they actually have to comply or lose all that federal money. So everything they feared the worst would happen actually happened. And they're scrambling.
So I just want to give some context here, and we've been helping a lot of our partners kind of navigate that, because
how do you navigate? Okay. As a DEI consultant, how are you helping educational institutions navigate the violations of Title VI and either the termination of or threats of termination of their federal financial assistance? How? I'd love to know, just out of morbid curiosity, how do you walk a client through a crisis like that?
Some of them, based on the initiatives that they put in place for DEI, it was actually benefiting their operation bottom line. Not
how?
Just to feel good of like, oh, we have a culture event, or we're doing, like, their workforce needed reliable employees, and the effort that they did over the last couple of years has created a sustainable way for them to continue to tap on communities that maybe perhaps they never tapped on before.
They tapped communities? Okay. Let me ask you something. If an unjust and discriminatory practice results in a financial benefit for an organization, does that justify the perpetuance of that practice? I mean, if you are making a financial boon out of being unfair to people, is that something that should be celebrated? Does that make it okay?
That are part of their workforce. So from a business standpoint, they needed to continue to do the work, or else their workforce will be jeopardized. So,
wow, I can think of a historical example where there was a major financial benefit to laws that enabled a organization or an individual to procure a very specific workforce. So obviously, if you can make a lot of money by being unfair to people or unjust, that's okay.
So that was more on the wording side. So there's a lot of scanning through their websites, having to take different words out and changing different things. But the work itself needed to continue because they needed a reliable workforce.
A reliable workforce. DEI creates a reliable workforce. Okay. Abdicatus, can you just show that title screen with their names and photos on it real quick again? Sure. I can do that. Whoops, wrong one. Yeah, so strategies from DEI consultants for organizational leaders navigating uncertainty and leading inclusion efforts. The moderator, who isn't really moderating much, Marwa Hassanian. We have Carrie Heistad, David Sanchez Aguilera, and currently speaking is Deo Wano. Excuse me. So we have the Marwa is the Associate Vice President, Community Engagement and Belonging at Northern Light Health. Carrie is the CEO at Culture Coach International and was the top Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer on Powerless 2023. David Sanchez Aguilera is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consultant at Whipfly. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. WIPFLI. It's either Whipfly or Whipfly or Whipfly. And then Deo Wano is the CEO, founder, and managing principal at Deo Wano Consultancy. So there you go for references to who we're listening to.
On the other side, with federal contracts. So does anybody here work for DHHS?
No, not me.
Department of Health and Human Services for the state of Maine?
No.
No one? Okay. Now I can talk smack. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Sure.
Peace and love.
Uh-huh.
So about a year and a half ago, my team and I, we got a contract to work with the Department of Health and Human Services.
About a year ago. Okay, so 2024 under Biden. Uh-huh.
Across all their teams and all their departments. And part of the job was to be able to assess what have they done in relation to their 5-year DEI strategic plan.
A 5-year DEI strategic plan. Would that include quotas by any chance?
In order to see where they were along and where there was areas for improvement.
Okay, so you were doing a race audit.
Where they need to fix certain stuff.
Uh-huh.
It took a really long time for the project to actually start.
And then it was canceled when Trump took over.
And when we started the project, we wanted to understand the lay of the land. So part of that was give us any artifact of anything that you've done. So when I said Department of Health and Human Services, this is CDC, the Medicaid, some of the mental health hospitals throughout the state. I mean, this is huge. I mean, thousands of employees.
Give me any artifact of anything you've done under DEI. Okay, setting aside my own personal biases, as he said earlier, there is so much that has been placed under the umbrella of DEI. To say something like that in general terms is asking for an absolute avalanche of paperwork. I do not envy him and his team what happened from that request.
And when we started to assess where all of these different teams were independently, but also collectively, what we noticed was the DEI statements and outcomes, where there were opportunities for those things to be embedded into actual practices, that's where folks struggle. And I'm sure.
Why? Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so you saw a pattern between lip service and implementation. Okay. Why was there a struggle? What was the difficulty?
There are a lot of you can relate to this in some of your organizational partners that you've worked with. It was much easier to do certain things versus other things, like actually, like, for example,
I love this guy. Examples.
There's a lot of data set that you would think DHHS takes from community members, participants. But some of those data sets were not being assessed based on demographic of the people that they were serving.
Oh, so they weren't being racially biased enough.
So some of those data just set somewhere.
Set somewhere without a racial lens, you mean?
It never got analyzed for that reason.
it made race irrelevant in assessing the data, you say. Oh no! Heavens to Murgatroyd.
And then there were other things that were happening in terms on the recruitment side.
Like what? Oh, come on, man. You're doing so well. Give us some more examples.
Our goal was just to assess, to understand the lay of the land. And what I found very interesting, and this is not just unique to DHHS, this is also with other partners we work with. It's so much harder to embed some of these outcomes.
Why?
Into a practice standpoint.
Why?
Because what it does is it opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, okay. What? You keep dancing. You keep dancing around it. You keep teasing me with it. What? What is it?
Because if you do find that there are loopholes that maybe shows preferences of your organization or even systemic favoritism.
You mean aside from that which is implemented ultimately by DEI?
Then it looks bad for your organization, right?
No. Stop. If you have someone come into your company and they do a racial audit and they find a disparity in demographic quote-unquote representation, and then they point to this disparity and say, aha, that is evidence of racism, or that is evidence of sexism, or whatever it is, because Witchfinder General has found the witch. Yeah, it looks bad because you said it looks bad because you're concerned only with aesthetics. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy that is the bread and butter of DEI. Can we take a situation and say it is evidence of wrongdoing? Then we've completely justified our existence and our paycheck. Right? You classify a demographic disparity as evidence of wrongdoing, of evil deeds, of discrimination and bias and preferential treatment and cronyism and white supremacy. But before you've even entered the room, you know you can use this stuff to leverage a guilt trip out of a company or a PR nightmare if they don't do something about it. And by doing something about it, it means giving you a paycheck and then artificially arranging for an aesthetic shift in their workforce. Come on.
And if you think of the previous administration, those were actually benchmarks that they were being, many organizations that were receiving federal money were being measured on.
Yeah. Do you fulfill a quota, then you get money.
So many organizations prior to the current administration didn't want to go that far with their DEI effort. But it was so much easier to do like a lunch or an activity or a calendar. But the real work was really in the data itself.
Yeah, if you looked at it through a racial lens.
And assessing what the data is saying about the reality. So we unpack a lot of different things and we created a whole thing on how they can approach your system. And then unfortunately, the new administration arrived.
Oh, and then the spigot was turned off.
And the hard part was we got to a really awesome place because my team and I, we never work from an assumption standpoint. Like we want to understand first.
You never work from an assumption standpoint. DEI requires a preconceived assumption about what is evidence of wrongdoing. Come on.
And so then February we get the whole project is put on it's frozen.
Oh.
And then 2 weeks later we can continue. And we're like, all right, great. We start working again. A week and a half later, it's frozen. So this went on about 5 different times where it was good to go, stop, good to go, stop, good to go, stop.
Who is telling you good to go? Who is telling you stop? I'd love to have some details on this.
And I tell this story not to put on, and it's not DHHS's fault at all. It's just to show the landscape of how some of these resources that were allocated for
your paycheck,
organization, department, and teams to do the work authentically.
To do the work authentically, the work.
One last story. There's a consortium in New Hampshire called the Regional Valley Consortium. This is
Consortium?
Regenerative medicine is a big thing that's happening around the Manchester area, New Hampshire area, where Dean Kamen, he's an inventor who started the Segway.
Dean Kamen? Oh my God, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Get all Obi-Wan Kenobi on that one.
And he's received over $500 million from the federal government to do to create this industry where they're doing regenerative medicine. Like,
boy, Dean Kamen, inventor of the Segway. Now he's in regenerative medicine. Is Dean Kamen a biologist or a doctor? Hold on. What is it? What is his credentials? Dean Kamen. What is he? He's an American engineer. What's his education? He attended Worcester Polytechnic Institute, but quit in 1976 before graduating, so he was a college dropout. He's an engineer. What is he? What? Okay, so, all right, Dean Kamen doing regenerative medicine. And?
Hearts and whatever.
Okay.
So
you have a real extensive understanding of this. Okay.
In one of the requirements for this grant they received was $150 million, maybe $200 million.
$200 million of taxpayer money.
And there was a component to the grant that required to do an equity transportation assessment, because the goal was, as these industry are growing, that they can create also occupations where underserved population can also be tapped into those occupations. So as the industry grows, there's a variety of different demographics that are also entering this field. Okay,
so a component of this $200 million taxpayer grant was to be discriminatory in the distribution of resources on the basis of race.
So they had to show in their application that they were going to do things in an equitable way that looked at all organizations.
Yeah, I love when you find a way to make the word equity equal discriminate. Isn't that fun?
The way they wrote their grant looked so good that they received the grant out of 50 different towns, cities, states that apply for this.
Okay. Now, there is something to be said for if the federal government puts particular prerequisites on grants and organizations do everything they can to comply with those prerequisites, are those organizations as guilty for implementing ultimately discriminatory programs and activities than they would have been if they'd done it all on their own, if they hadn't been induced by the federal government in the first place? This is why DEI needs to be taken out at the root of the federal government, because it just trickles down. So Dean Kamen's whatever organization, are they bad because they put an equity component into their business plan? Yes. Is it all their fault? No. They were induced to do so. But if they recognized how that is actually fundamentally inequitable, then they would have refrained from applying for the grant in the first place. But maybe that's too much to ask these days. I don't know.
So they received that $200 million.
Right.
And part of the $2 million came with this equity assessment. So we did the equity assessment.
How much did you get for that?
And it was the coolest thing ever, because most of the time when these transportation studies are done, it really only focuses on certain demographic. Most of the time it's middle white Americans that participate in this.
And so you made sure to what?
So we went to bus stops, temp agencies, all these different places. I mean, the crazy amount of different research that came out of it.
I can only imagine.
Everybody's happy about it. Wow, we have like actual representation of our town.
Actual representation of our town. Uh-huh. What town was this? What are the population demographics of said town?
So we created a summary. We passed the summary. In the midst of our report, the administration changed.
Uh-huh.
Guess what happened?
It was yanked because of the equity component, the demonstrably racially discriminatory component.
Anything that had to do with equity, diversity was all skimmed out.
Yeah.
But then when we had the opportunity to report on our finding, the organization was a little scared to even be honest to say, hey, can we find another way to talk about equity or inclusion?
So like everybody else, just change some words on the title of your report, right?
And so as a partner, I'm like, the study was an equity study. You got federal money to do an equity study.
Yeah, this is, and this is the paradox of a lot of things that were going on, because the federal government was endorsing and undersigning a lot of things that on their face shouldn't have been there. And then, like I say, these organizations complied with what they were being asked to do in order to qualify for this money. And so you just pass on the sin, effectively. So is it unfair? Yes, to the people that got discriminated against because of it. Is it unfair to the companies that were just following orders? We were just following orders! Sort of. They were played a raw hand, as it were. But if they understood and accepted the implications of what they were agreeing to do in the first place, then I don't know. My level of sympathy exists a little bit for companies that were just like, well, the federal government's requiring us to do this in order to gain the money to do this stuff. And so do we have a choice in the matter without just giving up on applying for the grant? Well, you do have a choice, but anyway.
We need the target audience that we engage with was supposed to reflect that. I know things have changed. Can we still reference it in a different way?
Right, just change the stripes on the tiger. Yeah.
And then it became this whole entire thing. So I tell
this whole entire what are you talking about?
These two stories, well, three different stories to you all to explain to you that the shift that happened was not just from an ideology standpoint. I know a lot of you all have experienced this. There's literally resources that are tied that's been taken away from this.
Yeah. And you know, the resources from the corporate world were already on the decline, and the promises were being rescinded long before Trump came into office. You want to talk about that or why that might have been?
And I think the hardest part about moving forward for some organization is because they never got to do the real work.
The real work.
Maybe only stayed on the mission and vision statement. It's actually really hard when the friction is currently happening now, right? Like people say, there's been folks that say that this is the true civil rights era for the white community.
Well, DEI is anti-civil rights. What do you mean?
Which it really is, because what it means is this is an opportunity for allies to be able to figure out what does it mean for you to navigate this new landscape.
What?
But those who are marginalized are still marginalized, and they're going to still experience the pain point.
Marginalized as in denied opportunities on the basis of their race? You mean like white people or white adjacent people under DEI? Like in the affirmative action case with the Asian students, that kind of thing?
But if we gain momentum in the last 5 years, then the evidence of that would be what do we do now and what we do moving forward. So sorry, that was a really long statement, but that's how I answer that.
Thank you, Deo.
Okay, well, we've heard from all three speakers. Surprisingly enough, given how much time each one took, especially the first guy, we're now at an hour and a half in real time for the show. So, do we want to do a part 2 on this at some point? Hear what the rest of it might be or what other rationalizations might be? Let me know in the comments. And or, I think that's where that guy's name came from on Star Wars. I think they're trying to come up with names for the character, and they were like Cassian something and / or something else. And someone said, hey, how about just Andor? And I'm like, wow, that's great. That was always my theory. Like in Dragon Age. The world that Dragon Age exists in is called Thedas. Thedas. And because on some whiteboard or something when they were first drafting the elements of the world, they didn't have a name for this land or this planet or whatever that the story existed on. So they just called it the Dragon Age setting. And eventually somebody just shortened it to Thedas. And that just became the name of the land. I think that's what happened. Anyway, sorry. I got off track there. Why would I? If you'd like to join the Discord server, there's a link to the Discord server in the chat right now. Just click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you actually watch the stream, are not a bot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is example. Just say hello, example, and I'll know that you watched the show, because that's what I was waiting for. And thankfully, at least finally, our third speaker gave us some, even if they were in some places a little bit amorphous. Some programming notes. So starting this week on Midnight's Edge in the morning, they're moving the show 2 hours back from the usual start time. And as a consequence of that, at least for the foreseeable future, I will be unable to attend Midnight's Edge in the morning. Or if I do, it'll be maybe for a few minutes at the tail end or something, if I can, because it falls smack dab in the middle of my workday. And especially this week in particular with month end, I'm going to be very busy. Likewise to that, Tuesday. Sometime in the afternoon Pacific time, granted that Mr. Black is feeling up to it because he's currently dealing with the flu, and granted that I get a confirmation on the actual start time, sometime in the afternoon, and I will have a link up to it again or more information on the Discord and in my Twitter feed as I'm able. I will be attending the 100,000, now 100,000 plus celebratory live stream on One Crime TV with Mr. Black, and also currently scheduled to appear retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, who has been a guest on Dateline and MSNBC and NBC shows and everything else. She has her own YouTube channel, talks about true crime cases. I'm going to be on a panel with an FBI agent, guys. This is so crazy. Anyway, that is going to happen Tuesday, September 30th, sometime in the afternoon. As soon as I have that locked down and I've got that confirmed, I will let you guys know. But keep your eyes on One Crime TV. Go check it out regardless for true crime content from Mr. Black. He makes excellent now of television grade quality. And he's, effectively, by now he's a two-man shop. He was at one time a one-man shop, and he was making great stuff even then. But now he's got a sorcerer's apprentice. Or has for a little while now. And he's got so many crazy projects in the works, guys. I couldn't describe them if I tried because they're very complex, but also some things I feel as though I'm not allowed to talk about because they're not quite finalized yet. Anyway, all that being said, so that'll be Tuesday, and then Thursday, per usual, TED Excellence, where, unless something else really wows me, guys, we have a brand new TEDx talk about restorative justice. Oh my gosh, I have been waiting for another restorative justice dip for a while now. Can't wait to take a look at it if that's what it ends up being, because something else might come up. But restorative justice is one of my favorite perennial topics to talk about, so we'll have that at least in the background, unless something else more interesting comes up, for Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence. Everyone, that is the show. Let me go back to the chat real quick for any more hellos and such, or any goodbyes. Nope, it's mostly just Advocatus Diaboli. Advocatus Diaboli has a lot to say. Oh, but Lindsay the Cynical Geek is here. Hi, Lindsay. Anybody else? I think I said hello to everybody. If I missed you, I apologize. But everybody, hope you're having a good rest of your Sunday. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or, and I don't even think I remember to mention, at the top of the chat box, there's a link there to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society donation page. Please take a look at that if you can. And if you can donate, please do so. And even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So with that, everyone, have a good rest of your Sunday. I hope the rest of your oncoming week is a calm one. For those of you dealing with month-end stuff, you have my sympathies. And I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.